Someone in your life right now is smiling at your face and celebrating your failures in private. Not with hate, with behavior. And your nervous system has already felt it. That strange heaviness after a conversation with someone who's supposed to support you. That quiet confusion of why do I feel smaller around them? That feeling isn't sensitivity. That feeling is intelligence. Hidden hostility never announces itself. It shows up in a timed compliment, a question disguised as care, a reaction that's just slightly off. Your gut already sent you the signal. Today you learn how to read it. There is something nobody tells you about the people who secretly work against you. They don't look like enemies. They look like friends. They show up at your birthday. They text you back. They sit across from you at dinner and laugh at your jokes. And that is exactly what makes them dangerous. Not their hatred, but their disguise. Your brain is wired to detect obvious threats. The person who yells at you, the one who insults you openly, the one who clearly shows hostility, your nervous system handles that. It knows what to do. It raises your guard, it creates distance, it protects you. But the brain struggles with threats wrapped in warmth. It struggles with danger that smells like loyalty. Because when someone hurts you with a smile on their face, your mind enters a conflict it wasn't built to resolve easily. So instead of protecting you, it starts negotiating with you. It says maybe you're overthinking, maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe they didn't mean it like that. And while your mind is busy making excuses for them, they are busy doing it again. This is where the damage actually happens. Not in the moment of the subtle insult or the backhanded compliment or the muted reaction to your success. The damage happens in the aftermath when you talk yourself out of what you clearly felt. When you override your own perception to protect a relationship that was never fully protecting you. And here's what most people never understand about this kind of hidden hostility. It is not random. It is not accidental. It follows a pattern. The same pattern repeated across different people, different relationships, different contexts. Because human behavior under the influence of envy, insecurity, and resentment is surprisingly predictable. People don't invent new ways to quietly undermine someone they feel threatened by. They run the same playbook. They always have the backhanded compliment that leaves you feeling grateful and confused at the same time. The sudden engagement when something goes wrong in your life. The competition disguised as conversation. The private warmth that vanishes the moment an audience appears. The information you shared in confidence that somehow resurfaces at the worst possible moment. These are not isolated incidents. These are signals, and signals only become useful when you know how to read them. Pattern recognition is not paranoia. Let that land for a second. Because the moment you start paying attention to behavior instead of words, people will call you suspicious. They will call you guarded. Some will even call you cold. But what you are actually becoming is aware. And awareness is the only thing standing between you living by your perception and living by someone else's manipulation. Think about the last time someone's words felt fine, but something underneath felt completely wrong. That gap between what was said and what you felt, that is your pattern recognition activating. That is your mind catching something your emotions hadn't fully processed yet. Most people dismiss that gap. They smooth it over with logic. They say, I have no proof, so I should give them the benefit of the doubt. But proof is what you collect after you've already been paying attention. The feeling comes first. The pattern confirms it. And once you start seeing these patterns clearly, something shifts in you permanently. You stop being shocked by betrayal. You stop feeling blindsided by people who were showing you exactly who they were the entire time. You stop confusing access with loyalty, attention with support, proximity with safety. Because the most powerful thing you can do in any relationship is see it accurately. Not harshly, not with suspicion, but with clarity. And clarity starts with recognizing that behavior never lies, even when the person delivering it absolutely does. Most people go through their entire lives reacting to behavior they never fully understood. Someone says something that stings, but they can't explain why. A relationship slowly drains them, but they can't pinpoint the source. A person they trusted makes them feel small repeatedly, and they keep returning, keep sharing, keep opening the same door that keeps closing on their fingers. And they blame themselves. They think the problem is their perception, their sensitivity, their inability to just let things go. But the problem was never their perception. The problem was they had no framework to explain what they were experiencing. When you can name something, you stop being victimized by it. That is not a motivational statement. That is literally how the human brain processes threat. The moment you can identify a behavior, label it, understand its psychological function, it loses its power over you. It moves from something that happens to you to something you observe. And that shift changes everything. Backhanded compliments are not just rude comments from insecure people. They are a specific psychological mechanism called dominance framing. The person delivering them is not simply being awkward or thoughtless. They are unconsciously and sometimes very consciously reinforcing a hierarchy. They are placing themselves above you in the social order while using the language of support to do it. When someone says, "I'm proud of you, I just didn't think you had it in you," they are not complimenting you. They are reminding you of the version of you they preferred, the smaller one, the one that didn't threaten their self-image. Understanding that mechanism doesn't just explain the comment. It explains the person. It tells you what is happening inside them, what they need from the interaction, and why they keep doing it even when they probably know on some level that it lands wrong. The same applies to every behavior pattern in this space. When someone becomes suddenly engaged and energized during your failures, that is not a personality quirk. That has a name. It is called downward comparison. It is a psychological regulation strategy where a person stabilizes their own self-worth by measuring themselves against someone who is temporarily struggling. They are not being cruel in the way most people imagine cruelty. They are soothing their own insecurity using your setback as the medicine. Knowing that doesn't mean you accept it. It means you stop taking it personally and start reading it accurately. When someone gathers your vulnerabilities through friendly conversation and deploys them later in moments of conflict or public exposure, that is not just betrayal in the casual sense of the word. That is covert dominance. It is a calculated strategy to maintain psychological leverage without open confrontation. And the reason it works so effectively is because it exploits the very thing that makes you human. Your willingness to trust, to open up, to believe that someone listening closely is someone who cares. This is why understanding the psychology underneath behavior is not optional if you want to protect yourself. Because these tactics work on people who don't understand them. They are designed to work below the level of conscious awareness. They are designed to make you feel the effect without being able to identify the cause. That gap between feeling and understanding is where manipulation lives. But when you understand the mechanism, the gap closes. You feel the discomfort, and instead of spiraling into self-doubt, you recognize the tactic. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" you start asking, "What is this person actually doing and why?" That question is not defensive. That question is powerful. It repositions you from target to observer, from confused to clear, and clarity built on real psychological understanding is not something anyone can easily take from you. Because you are no longer operating on feeling alone. You are operating on knowledge, and knowledge about human behavior, about why people do what they do when they feel threatened, insecure, or envious. That knowledge becomes a permanent filter through which you read every room, every relationship, every interaction that doesn't quite add up. There is a moment most people have experienced but very few have ever talked about out loud. You walk away from a conversation with someone close to you, a friend, a colleague, maybe even a family member, and something feels off. Not broken, not dramatic, just off. Like a picture hanging slightly crooked on a wall. You can't always explain it. You can't always point to the exact word or moment that caused it. But something inside you shifted during that interaction and you left feeling less than when you arrived. You probably didn't say anything about it. You probably pushed it down, told yourself you were tired, told yourself they were having a bad day, told yourself that you're the kind of person who reads too much into things. And then you went back, and it happened again. That experience is more common than most people are willing to admit. And it is more important than most people have ever been taught to take seriously. Because that feeling, that quiet deflation after spending time with someone who is supposed to fill you up, is not a glitch in your emotional system. It is your emotional system working exactly as it should. It is sending you a signal that something in that dynamic is costing you more than it is giving you. The problem is that most people were never taught to trust that signal. They were taught to be generous, to assume the best, to give people the benefit of the doubt. And those are not bad values. But they become dangerous when they are applied without discernment. When being generous with others means being dishonest with yourself. When assuming the best about someone else requires you to assume the worst about your own perception. You have been in a room with someone and felt your energy drop the moment they started speaking. You have shared good news with someone and felt the celebration die somewhere in the space between you. You have opened up to someone about something real and walked away feeling strangely exposed instead of understood. These are not small things. These are your inner system flagging an imbalance, flagging a relationship where the emotional exchange is not equal, not clean, not safe. And the reason this matters so deeply is because human beings are not just logical creatures making calculated decisions. We are profoundly emotional, profoundly social, profoundly affected by the energy and intent of the people we allow close to us. The relationships we stay in, the conversations we keep having, the people we keep giving access to, they shape how we see ourselves over time. Not dramatically, not all at once, slowly, quietly, the way water shapes stone. When someone consistently delivers support wrapped in doubt, praise wrapped in skepticism, warmth wrapped in competition, your nervous system absorbs all of it. You don't just forget those interactions, you internalize them. You start to carry their version of you. Their ceiling for you, their quiet verdict on what you are and are not capable of. And eventually, without even realizing it, you start to enforce that ceiling yourself. That is the real cost. Not the individual comment, not the single muted reaction or the one backhanded compliment. The real cost is the accumulation, the slow erosion of your self-perception that happens when you keep returning to a source that is quietly, consistently telling you that you are slightly less than you believe yourself to be. And the reason you stayed is not weakness. The reason you stayed is because you are human, because you wanted to believe in the relationship, because the warmth was real sometimes and that made the coldness confusing. Because genuine moments existed, and those moments made the subtle damage harder to identify and harder to walk away from. But here's what you need to understand. Recognizing this pattern in your life is not about becoming bitter. It is not about deciding that people cannot be trusted or that closeness is a trap. It is about something much more precise than that. It is about learning to feel the difference between relationships that restore you and relationships that quietly deplete you. Between people who celebrate your growth because it genuinely lifts them and people who tolerate your growth while privately resenting every inch of it. That difference lives in the feeling you carry after you leave them. And that feeling has been trying to tell you something for a long time. Most people never calculate the real cost of keeping the wrong people close. They think about loyalty. They think about history. They think about the good times and the shared memories and the version of that person they believed in before the pattern became impossible to ignore. What they don't think about, what almost nobody stops to honestly measure, is what staying is actually costing them. Not in dramatic moments of obvious betrayal, but in the slow, quiet, daily erosion of who they are becoming. Because here is the truth that is uncomfortable to sit with. Every person you give access to your inner world has influence over it. Not just in the things they say directly, in the energy they bring, in the reactions they give, in the subtle feedback your nervous system receives every single time you interact with them. You are not a sealed container moving through relationships without absorbing anything. You are permeable. You are affected. And the people closest to you are shaping you in ways that go far deeper than any single conversation ever could. When you keep someone close who secretly resents your growth, you are not just tolerating an uncomfortable dynamic. You are handing them a slow but consistent influence over your self-perception. Every muted reaction to your success teaches your nervous system to expect less celebration. Every backhanded compliment trains you to brace for the sting hidden inside the praise. Every moment of warmth followed by subtle dismissal keeps you slightly off balance, slightly uncertain, slightly dependent on their approval, even as that approval keeps arriving damaged. And the dangerous part is that this process does not feel dramatic while it is happening. It feels normal. It feels like just how relationships are. It feels like you being too sensitive or too ambitious or too focused on things that don't matter. Because the person doing it is not standing in front of you with their agenda visible. They are sitting beside you, close enough to look like an ally, while quietly making sure you never fully believe in yourself without looking to them for confirmation first. Think about the version of yourself you were before certain people entered your life. Think about the goals you had, the confidence you carried, the way you moved toward things without constantly second-guessing your right to want them. Now think about what changed. Not because life got harder, not because failure taught you humility, but because somewhere along the way someone started making you feel like your ambition was slightly embarrassing, like your confidence was slightly arrogant, like your success needed to be explained or justified or quietly apologized for in the way you talked about it around them. That shift is not personal growth. That is contamination. And it did not happen because you were weak. It happened because you were trusting, because you brought your real self into a space that was not actually safe for your real self to exist fully and freely. The stakes here are not abstract. They are not philosophical. They are deeply practically real, because the cost of keeping the wrong people close is not just emotional discomfort. It is delayed decisions. It is abandoned goals. It is the business you didn't start because someone you trusted kept reminding you of every reason it might not work. It is the opportunity you didn't take because the person whose opinion mattered too much to you responded to your excitement with silence or skepticism or that particular brand of practical concern that is really just fear wearing the costume of wisdom. It is the quieter version of yourself you slowly became while trying to stay comfortable in a relationship that was never fully comfortable with who you were growing into. And that quieter version has a price that compounds over time the way debt does. Silently, steadily, until one day you look up and realize the distance between who you are and who you were becoming before the wrong voices got too loud is much greater than you ever allowed yourself to acknowledge. The people you keep close are not neutral. They are not simply present in your life without consequence. They are either expanding your belief in yourself or they are quietly, consistently shrinking it. And the longer you wait to see that clearly, the longer you pay a price you never agreed to and a cost you were never meant to carry. The human mind has a deeply uncomfortable relationship with incomplete information. When something is left open, when a question is raised without being answered, when a pattern is named but not fully explained, the brain does not simply move on. It leans in. It searches. It stays with the tension of not knowing until it finds resolution. This is not a weakness in your psychology. This is one of the most powerful features of human cognition. And once you understand how it works, you start to see it operating everywhere, in the stories that keep you reading, in the conversations that keep you engaged, in the relationships that keep pulling you back even when part of you knows you should walk away. But here's where it gets interesting. That same mechanism, that drive toward completion, toward resolution, toward finally understanding what has been quietly bothering you, is exactly what this knowledge is about to activate in you. Because right now, if you are being honest with yourself, there is at least one person in your life who has been producing that feeling, that unresolved tension, that low hum of something not quite adding up, that recurring moment where you walk away from an interaction and your mind keeps returning to it, turning it over, trying to find the explanation that finally makes it make sense. You have been carrying that open loop for a long time. And the reason it has stayed open is not because you lack intelligence or intuition. It is because you had the feeling without the framework. You had the signal without the language to decode it. You knew something was off, but you could not name it precisely enough to act on it with confidence. And without that precision, most people do what feels safest. They wait. They give more chances. They talk themselves into patience while the pattern they cannot fully articulate keeps repeating itself in the background of their closest relationships. What changes when you finally have the framework is not just understanding. It is agency. Because the moment you can see a behavior clearly, name it accurately, and understand the psychological function it is serving for the person doing it, you are no longer reacting to something invisible. You are responding to something you can see. And responding to something visible from a place of knowledge is a completely different experience than reacting to something hidden from a place of confusion. Every single behavior that hidden hostility produces, every backhanded compliment, every muted celebration, every subtle competition, every weaponized confidence, every face that changes when the room fills up, has a specific psychological signature. It follows a logic. It serves a function. And once you know what that function is, once you understand what need it is meeting for the person expressing it, the behavior loses the ability to destabilize you. It stops landing as a question about your worth and starts registering as information about theirs. This is the shift that most people never make. They spend years absorbing the impact of these behaviors without ever developing the lens to see them for what they actually are. They internalize the damage without understanding the source. They adjust themselves, shrink themselves, second-guess themselves, all in response to a pattern they could feel but never fully see. But you are about to see it. All of it. Each behavior laid out with the clarity it deserves. The psychological mechanics behind it, the reason it works on people who don't recognize it, the specific signals that tell you it is happening in real time, and most importantly, the precise internal shift that moves you from someone these tactics work on to someone these tactics simply cannot reach. Because awareness at this level does not just protect you from one person. It changes the way you read every room you walk into for the rest of your life.